The question hung in the air like a prayer that had gone unanswered for too long. Dorothy Williams stood at the Family Feud podium in her best lavender cardigan, the one she'd worn hoping someone might notice she still cared about how she looked. The studio lights felt warm on her face, warmer than the sterile fluorescent bulbs at Sunset Manor had ever been. "When did someone last call you?" Steve Harvey had asked, and those 6 simple words unlocked a loneliness so deep it threatened to swallow her whole. Dorothy's weathered hands gripped the podium as she tried to remember the last time her phone had rung with love instead of duty. The silence stretched on as 300 people waited for an answer she was ashamed to give. It was Tuesday afternoon at the Family Feud studios in Atlanta. Dorothy had come with the Henderson family from her nursing home, invited by their grandmother who thought it might be nice for Dorothy to get out for once. She hadn't expected to be chosen to play, hadn't expected to stand under these bright lights feeling so exposed. The game had started normally enough. The Henderson family was competing against the Rodriguez family from Texas, and Steve was working his magic with the crowd. But when the question about phone calls came up, something in Dorothy's expression made everyone in the studio lean forward. Dorothy had raised 4 children as a single mother after her husband died when she was 35. She'd worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything, put them all through college. Robert was a surgeon now, living in California with his wife and twin boys who Dorothy had met exactly once. Sarah was a lawyer in New York, too busy with her career to visit. Michael had moved to Seattle after his divorce, and Jennifer lived just 40 minutes away, but might as well have been on another planet. All 4 had successful lives that somehow didn't include their mother anymore. "Christmas 2022, Dorothy whispered into the microphone. Her voice was barely audible, but the words carried the weight of 730 days of silence. Steve's expression immediately changed as he processed what she'd just said. The cameras captured every emotion crossing Dorothy's face. This wasn't just about winning money or entertaining an audience anymore. This was about a mother who had given everything to raise her children, only to be forgotten when they no longer needed her. "Christmas 2022, Steve repeated gently, stepping closer to the podium. "Sweetheart, that's almost 2 years ago." The math hung in the air like an accusation against children who should have known better. Dorothy nodded, her eyes filling with tears she'd been holding back for months. "Robert called to say they couldn't make it for Christmas dinner because the boys had the flu," she said. "That was the last time any of them called me." The studio fell completely silent. Even the crew members stopped what they were doing to listen to this confession that was breaking hearts throughout the building. Steve waited patiently for her to continue. "I tried calling them," Dorothy said, her voice growing stronger with confession. "But Robert's always in surgery, Sarah's always in court. Michael says he's traveling for work." She paused, the pain of the next words almost too much to bear. "Jennifer lives 40 minutes away," Dorothy continued. "She used to come for Sunday dinner every week when she was in college. Now she has her own family, her own life." The acceptance in her voice was somehow more heartbreaking than anger would have been. Dorothy had made peace with being forgotten, which made her situation even more tragic. Steve Harvey made a decision that would change this moment forever. He set down his cards and walked around the game board to stand directly in front of Dorothy. The audience watched in complete silence as television history was being made. This wasn't going to be a normal game show episode anymore. "Dorothy," Steve said, his voice carrying the weight of his own understanding of family, "tell me about your children. What were they like when they were little?" The shift in questioning was gentle but profound. Dorothy's face lit up for the first time since she'd taken the stage. "Oh, they were wonderful," she said, reaching into her sweater pocket. "I have their pictures right here." She pulled out a worn wallet, stuffed with photographs that were decades old. The leather was cracked from years of handling, and the pictures were faded from being looked at so many times. But Dorothy's eyes sparkled as she opened it. "This is Robert, when he graduated medical school," she said, showing Steve a photo of a young man in a cap and gown. "I was so proud. I worked double shifts at the diner to help pay for his books." Her voice was full of love and pride. untainted by the years of neglect. Steve looked at the photograph, seeing the joy in young Robert's face as he hugged his mother. The contrast with their current relationship was heartbreaking. "And this is Sarah at her law school graduation," Dorothy continued, flipping through the pictures. "She said I was her inspiration, that watching me work so hard made her want to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves." The irony wasn't lost on anyone listening. Steve looked at the photographs, then back at Dorothy. "Sweetheart, do you have their phone numbers?" he asked. Dorothy nodded eagerly, pulling out a small address book held together with rubber bands. "I know them all by heart," she said. "Robert's home, Robert's office, Robert's cell phone, Sarah's office, Sarah's apartment, Sarah's cell phone." She recited the numbers like a prayer she'd memorized through repetition and hope. The little address book was worn smooth from being handled so many times. Steve could see that Dorothy had been preparing for this call for months, maybe years. What happened next would become one of the most powerful moments in television history. Steve turned to the production team and made a request that had never been made in the show's history. "I need you to get Dorothy's children on the phone, right now." Behind the scenes, producers were frantically making calls. This wasn't part of any game show protocol. But Steve Harvey had learned long ago that some moments transcend television. The cameras kept rolling as the impossible was attempted. "Dorothy," Steve said, returning to her side, "what would you say to your children if they were here right now?" The question opened a floodgate of love that had been dammed up for too long. Dorothy didn't hesitate for even a second. "I'd tell them I'm proud of them," Dorothy said without hesitation. "I'd tell them I understand they're busy, that they have their own lives to live. I'd tell them I'm not angry, just—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Just lonely," she finished. "I'd tell them that the phone works both ways, and I'd love to hear about their lives, their children, their dreams." The simple honesty of her words hit everyone in the studio like a physical force. One of the producers approached Steve with a phone. The first call had gone through, and Robert was on the line. "Dorothy," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion. "Robert is on the line." Dorothy's hands shook as she took the phone. "Hello?" she said tentatively, as if she wasn't sure it was real. The entire studio held its breath as they watched a mother reconnect with her son for the first time in almost 2 years. "Mom?" came a voice through the phone, audible to everyone in the studio. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I saw you on TV, and I didn't realize how long it had been." Robert's voice was breaking as the reality of his neglect hit him. In the background, they could hear children's voices asking who was on the phone. His sons didn't even recognize their grandmother's name. "It's okay, sweetheart," Dorothy said, her face transforming with joy. "Tell me about the boys. How tall are they now? Are they still playing soccer?" Even in this moment of reunion, her first thoughts were about her grandchildren. The conversation lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like a lifetime to everyone watching. Robert promised to call that evening to bring the boys to visit, to never let so much time pass again. When Dorothy handed the phone back to Steve, she was crying, but they were tears of joy. "We have Sarah on the line too," Steve announced. The second call was even more emotional than the first. Sarah sobbed as she heard her mother's voice, apologizing over and over for letting her career consume her life. "I thought you were okay," Sarah said through tears. "I thought you liked the independence of the nursing home. I didn't know you were waiting for me to call." The assumption had cost them both 2 years of connection. Sarah had been so focused on her own life that she'd forgotten her mother was still living hers. By the time they reached Michael and Jennifer, the entire studio was crying. Each child had the same story. They'd been waiting for someone else to call first, assuming their mother was fine. Guilt had kept them from reaching out when they should have. Jennifer's call was the most heartbreaking of all. "Mom, I drive past Sunset Manor every day on my way to work," she confessed. "I keep telling myself I'll stop by, but I never do. I'm so ashamed." The nursing home was literally on her daily route. but emotional distance had made it feel impossible to cross. Every single day for 2 years, Jennifer had driven past her mother and kept going. What happened next shocked everyone, including Dorothy. "We're all coming," Jennifer said. "Right now, Sarah's catching the next flight from New York, Michael's flying in from Seattle, and Robert's driving down with the boys. We're having Sunday dinner tomorrow, just like we used to." The production team had to pause filming as Dorothy collapsed into Steve's arms, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal of her loneliness. 2 years of silence had been broken in 20 minutes, and her family was coming home. "Dorothy," Steve said, holding her steady, "you didn't lose your children. They just got lost for a while. But love like yours doesn't disappear, it waits." His words carried the wisdom of someone who understood that family relationships require tending, like gardens that can bloom again with the right care. The audience was openly sobbing as they witnessed this reunion between a mother and the children who had forgotten how much they needed her. Behind the scenes, something beautiful was happening. The Henderson family, who had brought Dorothy to the taping, were making plans to have her over for dinner while she waited for her children to arrive. The Rodriguez family exchanged numbers with Dorothy, promising to call her regularly. Complete strangers had become family in the span of an afternoon. Dorothy had walked into the studio as a forgotten mother and was leaving as the center of multiple families who would make sure she was never lonely again. As the cameras finally stopped rolling, Dorothy didn't want to leave the stage. For the first time in 2 years, she felt connected to the world, surrounded by love instead of isolation. Steve stayed with her, talking about his own family, sharing stories that made her laugh. The episode aired 3 weeks later and became a phenomenon. Nursing homes across the country reported increased visits and phone calls as adult children were reminded of their own parents. The phrase, "the phone works both ways," became a rallying cry for family reconnection. Dorothy's story sparked a movement. Steve Harvey partnered with nursing home associations to create Call Your Parent Day, encouraging adult children to reach out. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of elderly parents reconnected with children who had simply gotten too busy to remember what mattered most. 6 months later, Dorothy moved out of Sunset Manor and into a small apartment near Jennifer's house. She has Sunday dinner with one of her children every week, rotating between their homes. Her phone rings multiple times a day now, her children calling to share their daily lives, her grandchildren calling to say goodnight. The worn wallet full of old photographs has been replaced with a new one, filled with recent pictures of graduations, birthdays, and family gatherings she almost missed. Dorothy has become the center of her family again, not through guilt or obligation, but through the simple act of reconnection. The 2 years of silence felt like a bad dream that had finally ended. Robert's boys call her Grammy Dorothy now and visit every school holiday. They had grown from toddlers to young boys without her, but they were eager to make up for lost time. Sarah brings her legal cases to discuss over coffee, valuing her mother's wisdom in ways she never did before. Michael includes her in his travel stories through video calls from hotel rooms around the world. Every city he visits, he calls to describe it to her, making her feel like she's traveling with him. Jennifer has reinstated Sunday dinners, with Dorothy's apartment becoming the gathering place for 3 generations. Today, Dorothy volunteers at Sunset Manor, visiting residents who don't get calls or visitors. She carries Steve's message with her: love doesn't disappear, it just waits. Her phone number is posted in the common room, and she's become the unofficial grandmother to dozens of residents who need someone to remember they matter. The address book held together with rubber bands now lives in a frame on Dorothy's kitchen counter, next to a new phone that rings constantly with love. It serves as a reminder of the 2 years of silence and the power of one phone call to change everything. Every time Dorothy looks at it, she remembers how close she came to dying alone and forgotten. Because some mothers wait so quietly that their children forget they're waiting at all. Dorothy Williams had been invisible for 2 years, not because her children stopped loving her, but because life got so loud they couldn't hear her silence. One question on a game show reminded them that love doesn't expire, It just gets patient, waiting for the phone to ring with the voices that matter most. The miracle that happened on that Tuesday afternoon in Atlanta proves that it's never too late to call, never too late to visit, never too late to remember that some people shaped our entire world and deserve more than our leftover time. Dorothy's loneliness became a bridge back to family, and her patience became a lesson in grace that touched millions of hearts.